guys, welcome back to another video. So in today's video is going to be a bit different. Usually when you talk about, we talk about stock selection, we talk about what are the things that we're interested in and we do a checklist out of it and we get it. By the way, if you guys want to understand how to screen stocks, get the investment checklist workshop. The link is in the description box below. But today we will do a bit ulta because now we have Q1 FY26 ka results that is coming. You can see the company ka results and you can start rejecting the stock, right? No, we will do it in a similar way. What are the stocks that I don't like to hold in my portfolio? What are the stocks that I'm not interested in, right? What are the parameters when I see, it ticks me off over here, it's like, man, it doesn't deserve to be in the portfolio. So we will go through that, okay? So the first point we will go through is the business model, okay? Now, what do I mean by business model over here? You have to understand how does the company make money. You have to understand the intricacies of the business model. Now, why am I telling it is so important is because there will always be a situation, where, a one-off, a blue moon kind of case can come. And in order to understand the magnitude of that problem, you will have to understand the business model. Otherwise, you will not be in a condition whether you have to cut, whether you have to exit, completely. You will not be able to make that decision if you do not understand the business model. Now, if I don't understand the business model, let's say if it could be a 100% ka growth engine, it could be a 10% ka growth engine. I will neither track nor it would be in my portfolio if I don't understand the business model. The second parameter is the sales growth, the most important thing, right? By the way, if you guys, I think everybody who's taken the investment checklist workshop, you understand, right, how we have connected sales growth with receivables, with payables, with CFO, with inventory. So get it, sales growth has multiple things. Now here is a factor. If the sales growth is poor, right, if it is, let's say, a 10% ka growth engine, very poor, I'm not again interested in that, right, because it is futile. It makes no sense to come to the market, put so much effort, itna volatility ka jhelo, for what? For like a 10% ka sales growth engine, absolutely makes no sense over here. I will take an example over here to drive home the points. Let's talk about this hotel called as Banaras Hotels, okay? Iska agar aap dekhte ho, business model is very simple to understand. Do I understand the business model? Yes. दो properties hai, एक है वाराणसी में, एक है I believe in where is it? Starts from G somewhere. They have two properties. Total number of rooms are 176 rooms. ठीक है? Understands how does hotels make money, right? Hospitality business hai. The more people come, use your hotel, the more you're going to make money. I think everybody understands how hotels work. Second, so I understand the business model. Second, let's go to the parameter that I told you. What was the parameter? Sales growth. What is the sales growth? Q1 FY26 का number अगर मैं देखती हूँ 10% का sales growth है. Immediately reject. ठीक है. Now, along with that, you also have to see in the sales growth is it leading the race, right? A lot of you all understand the race ka concept, right? You have to be the number one player out of all the players in the sector. Is Banaras Hotels doing that? No, because there are many other players that is growing way faster than Banaras Hotel. So it gets rejected in the second thing. Now you might ask me, okay, I understand we reject it in the second parameter, sales growth, but there is always a possibility, ye jo hotels hai, ye jo companies hai for that matter, they're doing a capex, and because of that, the pace of growth, the sales ka jo number hai, it can increase, right? Is there a possibility? And that is highly so. In last year we saw that, right, Kitex and Bella Casa, which used to be in a deadbeat sector of such as आपको जो textile sector में कैसे capex किया, and उसके वजह से the sales growth went up, especially for Kitex. If you see, double the capacity and everything, great, right? 1000 crore का revenue किया and all of it. So is there a possibility now? Let's check for Banaras Hotels. Okay, if you look at Banaras Hotel का 176 rooms है, and they're increasing the number of rooms by 100. Okay, so almost 50% ka room ka capacity is increasing over here. Okay, now although you might look at it, the capex, and be like, oh, 50% increase kar rahe room ka capacity, which is well and good. Again, compare it with the other hotels that are there in the space. Is there anybody else who's doing way more capex than that? If the answer is yes, then you can't take Banaras Hotels, because the answer is yes. Along with that, you have to see, is this capex sustainable? Is there a runway for a capex? Now, what do I mean by runway for a capex is, see, like for example, you do not, you shouldn't need the capex to be futile. Like यहाँ पे, you will see these people are adding 100 beds, okay, and this 100 beds can reach an occupancy also very quickly, right? ये जो 100 बेड्स कर रहे हैं, सो इट कैन रीच शायद ये जो ग्रोथ है आपको, इट विल बी विजिबल फॉर लाइक अ ईयर और टू, राइट, बिकॉज ऑफ दिस 100 बेड्स. आगे जाके they do not have any plans to continue this kind of capacity going forward. So क्या होगा, और एक बार जो pace of growth है वो कम होता ही जाएगा. So whatever this capex that they're doing, it is not incrementally huge, it is not great in order for you to sustain that growth. It is a very short term thing, right? क्योंकि अभी base low है, ये capex आने की वजह से थोड़ा base बढ़ेगा. So obviously because of that base effect you're getting, but the runway for capex is not there. Another good example I'll give you over here is is Asarfi hospitals. Asarfi hospital का they have two hospitals, right? एक है धनबाद में and the other one they have cancer hospital. अभी तक क्या तो उनका सिर्फ एक ही hospital था, right? वो धनबाद का hospital. Then they bought this cancer hospital which is like a 50-bedded hospital and they want to increase it to 150 beds. Okay, but what after that 150 beds? Because this 150 beds will give them a runway, revenue का, sales growth का runway they will give, everything का runway will be there for 1 year or 2 years का runway है. After that what? After that, so now they because of that low base effect they're getting this 50-60% का. After that what? Again it goes back to normal. It becomes it goes back to the on the other hand you have companies like Yatharth, you have Kova, you have Max जिसका runway is bigger. उनका जो capex plan है, it is there for 3 to 4 years because of which they can reap that 30% growth का growth rate effectively. So you also have to check this, whatever the capex that they're doing, is there a runway for that capex or is it just a futile capex जो आपको it will give you a spurt or a spurt in terms of revenue for a couple of quarters and again it goes. Another kind of capex I'll tell you जो capex का लायक ही नहीं है, ठीक है. लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल एक FMCG का कंपनी है जिसका कैपेसिटी इज probably like 10 million कैपेसिटी है and now they're adding like 10 million का they have production capacity probably let's make it easy, let's say have 10 ton का capacity and they're adding only like probably like 10 1 ton capacity or something like that. Hardly 10% say capacity is being increased, not like 50-60%, and the 10% will probably not even add to the revenue anything. कुछ करता ही नहीं है. The revenue will not grow so much at all. So these are the kind of capex you would want to avoid. You would want to have a capex जिसके वजह से sales growth में there would get that bump over here. And even if it gets that bump, make sure the runway for that is huge. Which like like for Banaras Hospital, there is a lack of hunger over here from the management, right? Because यहाँ पे एक hotel बन रहा है, ठीक है 100 बेड्स इंक्रीज कर रहे हैं everything, but once after that it is done, I mean there isn't much over here for that company. And also on the other hand there are many other hotels that are doing much better capex than them and have a huge runway for growth over here. That is the third thing. The fourth thing over here is you have to check for his margins. You do not want any company जिसका margin is coming at a cost of sales growth. Okay, now what do I mean by margin is coming at a cost of sales growth over here? Which means what? Sales growth है नहीं, sales growth 10 है 12% है, but you will see that the PAT that is there, PAT is growing by 40% 50%. Okay, and a lot of people buy stocks like this जिसका sales growth नहीं है, but PAT जो है is like multifold में increase हो रहा है. You need to ask yourself first of all, why did this PAT increase so much? Why did the margins यहाँ पे increase so much? When you see over here, there can be multiple reasons. The first common reason you will get is raw material का cost came down. Okay, last year raw material का cost बढ़ा था. Now see, you cannot play this raw material का cost का game every time. ना, there will come a point where raw material का cost will get normalized, right? So this is one thing. जहाँ पे margins that is there is coming at a cost of cutting corners. Maybe raw material का cost घटना, maybe employee benefit expenses जो you are not paying your employees at all, right? You are getting rid of people and because of which आपका margins बढ़ रहा है. Third, your operational expenses, शायद electricity cost में आप save कर रहे हो. A good example of this is employee cost. I can't remember of an example, but the operational cost I can think is of Bharat Wires. Okay, there was a time where the sales was growing only by 10%, but PAT is growing by 30-40%. क्यों? Because they installed this solar capacity in their plant, and because of which they get this government का subsidies. उनका electricity cost कम आ रहे, operational cost कम हो रहे. As a result क्या हो रहे? Power consumption कम है, margins is getting better and better. PAT बढ़ता ही जा रहा है. So these are the kind of companies I don't want. The fourth thing over here, आपका debt चुकाना, right? Debt चुकाना is not a bad thing, but having said that, if your sales is not growing and if I see that the margins are improving, why? Because आपने debt चुकाया, अब interest नहीं pay करना है, finance cost is less, sales minus expenses profitability, आपके expense कम होता जा रहे हैं, because of which profit is getting bigger. ठीक है, last year debt था, इस बार debt नहीं है, so because of that base effect you're taking advantage. But next year से again the base will get normalized now. So these are the things. Margins, if I have sales and along with that sales the margins are improving, great, well and good, I will take it. But if I see that the sales that is there is not there and margins are coming at a cost of cutting corners or coming at a cost of sales, then I do not want these kind of companies. So these are the four main parameters I would say. One is the business model, example. Second is the sales also you have to, I would need a high growth engine. If it is a low growth engine, and if it is coming, let's say even if it is a 30% का growth engine, but let's say in that sector there are two more players that is growing by 40 or 50%, again the company becomes unattractive. The third, like I told you, is capex. Look for capex. By whatever the production capacity they are adding, they're increasing the capacity. How much will it add to the revenue? Is it a very small number? It wouldn't make any sense, right? Or if is it futile or not, or is it is it actually going to bring changes in the revenue? Or for that matter, you also have to check like jo capex kar raha hai, is it having a huge runway for growth or not? And the fourth thing, margins coming at the cost of sales, where the margins are improving by cutting corners. These are the stocks I do not want. Okay, so these are the kind of stocks if you find in Q1 FY26 that is there, I would say avoid it. The another point I would like to add over here is the sales growth over here. Okay, sales growth is a combination, again I would plus point I would say is a combination of two things, volume growth as well as value growth. Okay, now it is easier for you to increase volume growth. Now let's say if your value growth is coming, let's say आपका, let's take the hotel का example only, Banaras Hotel, ठीक है. Now Banaras Hotel आगे जाके, let's say if they have only this 174 beds plus 100 beds they are adding, ठीक है. The maximum amount of, because see 174 plus 100 beds, 274 beds हो गया. So they only have 274 rooms to cater. Now let's say this hotel is in Varanasi. Let's say if there are 10 lakhs people coming and visiting in Varanasi, they can't go and stay in hotels. The management can't do anything about this. Why? Because they only have 274 rooms. They can only cater to 274 families at a day. They cannot even cater to 275 or 276 families. They can't, because that is a maximum capacity, right? So you need more and more volume growth. If I see that though the sales is coming from value growth, there is a volume growth is getting compromised. Value growth kaise aa sakta hai? Maybe you're increasing the price of the hotels, right? That wouldn't add, because there is an upper ceiling for your price, right? Because see, for example, price ka in hotel ka segment only if I have to talk about, or generally also if you see, when you increase a price, there is a ceiling. More price you increase, for every product I believe there is a ceiling. The more price you increase, kya hota hai? The competitors will start taking advantage. They will discount. They'll be like, "Arey, uska price zyada hai, mere se le lo. I have the same product at better price," right? So that is the thing where competition can rise, and a lot of people can underquote you and get it. The other thing is, let's say you are a premium product at the end of the day and you price yourself at higher. In here also there are many times where your volume growth can get compromised. Why? Because aapka ultimately your addressable market becomes less. Let's take a hotel only for example, right? Now let's say Banaras Hotel is they have the Tajka hotels. Okay, that is a brand that they work with. Now you can tell me over here, Taj is a brand and they can cater to, like how do I tell, they can hold themselves premium. But having said that, right, every hotel has a criteria. If you are in a Oyo hotels can, it could be somewhere between 2 to 5,000. Lemon Tree 5,000 to 15,000 a night. Taj starts between 20,000, can go even up to 2 lakhs. Beyond the point, there is a threshold. Whether you're a hotel, whether you're a premium brand, you can't raise, right? You can't raise a price. With Banaras Hotel, what happens over here? Let's say tomorrow in Varanasi, there are multiple hotels that are getting opened. They will not be able, you could be a brand, you will face, वहाँ पे ताज का भी competitors है, Radisson है, वो है, Conrad है, everybody are there. Again, you will have to underquote your price. You do not have that ultimate pricing power over here, because जितना competition आएगा उतना आपका pricing में pressure पड़ेगा. The other thing, आप इतना premium बन जाओ, आपका रूम में सिर्फ 4 लाख, 5 लाख, 6 लाख का रूम, क्या होता है? You only have a limited amount of audience you can cater to. आपका addressable market कम होता है, जितना addressable market कम होता जा रहा है उतना आपका pace of growth कम होता जाएगा. So you understand over here also, I do not want a sales growth which is only a factor of price growth. I need both. अपना होटल है, होटल का बेड्स इंक्रीज करो, रूम इंक्रीज करो, अलॉन्ग विद दैट प्राइस का भी इंक्रीज करो. यू नीड टू हैव अ फैक्टर ऑफ बोथ. वॉल्यूम ग्रोथ भी होगा यहाँ पे, प्राइसिंग का भी ग्रोथ होगा. बट इफ यू आर गोइंग टू बी डिपेंडेंट ऑन ओनली वन थिंग, दैट इज ओनली द वैल्यू ग्रोथ, अगेन दैट इज अ कंपनी दैट आई डू नॉट वांट. अनदर गुड एग्जांपल इज इंडिया मार्ट इंटरमेश. इंडिया मार्ट इंटरमेश का आप जो सेल्स ग्रोथ देखते हो ना, इट कम्स बाय इंक्रीजिंग द प्राइस. जो उनका सब्सक्रिप्शन का प्राइस है, लास्ट ईयर 500 रुपए, इस बार 600 रुपए, विच मीन्स व्हाट? अल्टीमेटली यू आर इंक्रीजिंग द प्राइस एंड गेटिंग द सेल्स ग्रोथ अप. द नंबर ऑफ पीपल दैट आर बाइंग योर सब्सक्रिप्शन इज less. I do not want that either, right? Because ultimately there will come a point where nobody would want to pay that subscription fees, right? So that is also there. So all these points, if you find, go in a stepwise manner. First check for business model. If you can understand it, then go for sales growth. Sales growth अच्छा है, or if is it leading the race, well and good. Then check for capex. Even if sales growth is not there, maybe check for capex. If there is a turnaround story happening, right? Capex में two things you need to check. Check for the runway of the runway of the capex. Or if it can add, or is it a futile capex, which is not going to make sense or not going to add for revenue. Fourth, check for margins. How are the margins improving? Are the margins improving because आप कुछ वहाँ पे cost cutting कर रहे हो, कुछ कर रहे हो, anything? No, you do not want that kind of stocks, right? You do not at all want it. Fifth, what is the other point to check over here? Again, in sales growth, you can check sales growth कैसे आ रहा है, volume growth से आ रहा है, value growth से आ रहा है. How is the sales growth coming? All of these factors you can check. And if you find one or two factors over here, right? If you find especially margins, आपका जो capex हो रहा है and everything, these are, I would say, a couple of points you shouldn't ignore, especially the last two points that I spoke about, margins and value growth. If a sales ka factor, if you see that the bottom line is increasing due to margins, if you see that the sales growth ka factor is coming due to value growth, I would say be beware of these kind of stocks in the portfolio. If you do read over it and see, that the problem that is there. So if I come across in my portfolio, if I see that there are stocks that are going from good to any of these pointers, or if I see in Q1 FY26 there are any companies that are in these pointers, they will automatically get a rejection. They will automatically be rejected by me. Okay? So this is the stocks that these are the stocks, or these are the certain kind of stocks that I'm not really interested in. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. If you guys want to understand the entire screening process in depth, in detail, get the investment checklist workshop, right? It is literally the best. I'm pretty sure you will be able to analyze any company that is there in the sector all by yourself after getting that workshop. Bye.